Matt, with the coronavirus issue, do you have any grasp of whether this is contained to just Jason Spriggs and possibly Jermaine Ifedi, or whether this could be a bigger issue for you?
I think, Jason, we feel pretty good in regards to everything right now, with where we're at. So, I mean, this is now, a couple of weeks that we've been in this intensive protocol. We're kind of getting used to this quote unquote new schedule that we have. And everyone's been really good with the, when you're in this protocol, the way that you go about meetings, the way, wearing the mask all the time. And so, but we do feel strongly that, you got to keep your fingers crossed. You never know. Every day is a new day, but we feel pretty good about it.
How is Spriggs? Is he symptomatic?
Again, I don't know about the symptoms, but I haven't been told anything either way. So I'm figuring that he's pretty good.
Brad Biggs.
Coach, what challenges are there when you have 8 offensive linemen for practice?
Yeah, well, probably one of the biggest challenges is some of the times when you use some of those guys, for the look team and or after practice, you get a little extra work here or there. So, we're in a position right now with when you have that number of guys, we plan and prep as much as we can. I like one of the things that Coach Castillo does with some of these younger guys is gets a lot of extra work when he can. And so now you have an opportunity where you have a couple guys that are dinged up, and now it's their time to go out and get some reps and see where it goes. But it can be challenging rep wise, but it's exciting other ways and just guys getting opportunities.
Dan Wiederer.
Matt, how do you go about game planning when you have no idea what you can trust or who's actually going to play for you on the offensive line? And then in addition, can you give us some more clarity on what happened to Mitch?
Sure. Yeah. Well, one of the things that you have to do when you're game planning is you got to try to forecast, where guys will be at, which we're somewhat in a way, you have to do that anyway. In this year with all the COVID, you never know. You kind of have to have backup plans. So we try to, as we're creating a game plan, we try to think of all those situations, and then schematically you have to be able to adjust. I think that if you don't adjust and you just do things the way you've always done them, at least for a contingency plan, then you'll end up being in trouble. That's just in fairness to everybody. So I have a lot of faith in our coaching staff across the board and being able to do that. And then with Mitchell, he just got dinged up on that one play that we put him in on. And so, he's currently rehabbing things and just working on it that way. It's unfortunate, and I know that he's bummed out, but at the same time, that's, he kind of landed on it weird, and that there's, that's where that's at.
Deion Miller.
Matt, first I'll follow up with Mitch. Is there a long-term issue you expect there? And then what are the challenges for Nick with the offensive line as fluid as it is right now, and what he has to do to prepare for Sunday?
Sure. Yeah, we don't have any status yet in regards to where Mitch is here as we move forward with this, with his rehab. Deion, he's, that's for him to continue to keep working on and see where we're at with Andre, which I know they'll do a good job with. And then in regards to Nick and the offensive line and where we're at, we've talked about it as a staff. We've talked about it, with Nick. It is our job, and it's his job now to all of us have to step up and be able to adapt. I mean, that's kind of been our word this whole time is adjust and adapt and expect the unexpected. And every day it's always something new. So it would be one thing, I think, if you had a bunch of people that looked at the glass half empty and just everything was difficult, but we don't really do it that way here. And so it's exciting for our guys to be able to get an opportunity here in practice. And who knows where this thing goes for game day? We don't know yet. So as we go through this thing, let's give these guys an opportunity, all of us together, to do everything we can to be as successful as we can. And it's just an opportunity for others.
Hub.
Matt, with Mitch, can you tell us, is it the surgical shoulder from the off season, or is it the throwing shoulder? And is it something that kept you from calling his number again in game? Did you become aware of it at that point, or was that just all you had for him in the game Sunday?
So it's his right shoulder. So I think that would go back to 2018 is the one that he dinged up a little bit. And he didn't at first, he didn't even really know, so to answer your question on the front end, it just was something that ended up kind of, I think, lingering and hurting as the night went on. So it's unfortunate for him because, he went in there and I know it was only 2 yards, but it creates a threat to the defenses. So we just got to work through it. And I know he'll work hard at day by day, kind of seeing where things are at and just trying to rehab it back.
Mark Potash.
Hey, Matt, I know you said, I think it was last week, that you're built for the frustrations of this job, but is any part of you cursing your luck with the Trubisky injury? I mean, I put the kid in for one play and he gets hurt. Are you second guessing yourself, lamenting it? What's your reaction to that? And also, was part of this, obviously it's a strategic thing, but was any part of it kind of a reward for Trubisky to be part, for being a good soldier and to be part of the game? Was that any part of your thinking also in doing this?
Well, I'll say a couple of things. It's overall big picture wise, it's unfortunate that you get hurt, that any player gets hurt, let alone him, when he's had a couple of years of the shoulder injuries. And so, that part for him and for us is upsetting and frustrating and disappointing, I guess is probably a better word. But at the same point in time, like I said, Mitch has been really, really good throughout this whole process. I couldn't have asked for him to be any better. He's handled it like an absolute pro. And it doesn't surprise me at all one bit. At the same point in time, the position that we are in and that we've gone through to get to this point, we also know that using him in different areas and growing, with a package with him can be good. And I think that was a start for us right there. And then again, it's just unfortunate what happened on that play. But we're trying to do everything we can for him and for us as a team to be able to, use all of our weapons as much as we can.
Thank you.
Colleen Kane.
Hi, Matt. Are you planning on any additional team disciplinary measures for Javon Wims beyond the NFL suspension?
Yeah, I know that just came out the other day. And so the NFL, made their decision. And so what we're doing internally is still talking through some things. And, Javon's gone through his deal. So we're just going to continue to work through that. And right now, the focus for us right now is focusing on Tennessee, but we'll continue to monitor where all that's at and do what we think we need to do.
Wayne from ESPN. Wayne, go ahead and unmute yourself there.
Sorry about that, Coach. Coach, Nick has obviously experienced the highest of highs and lowest of lows in his career. I'm curious, as you've been around him, especially the last few weeks, the offense not clicking like you want, everything going on with the offensive line, how have you seen up close the way he handles that sort of adversity?
Yeah, Wayne, you see it firsthand. You listen to it, you hear it. We communicate a lot, not just throughout the day of the week, but after the game in the evenings. We'll talk through what just happened and how we continue to try to do everything we can to find answers and work together and collaborate through where we're at. The one thing is for all of us, everybody on offense, is knowing that we want to be a lot better. The only way to do that is to work hard. The only way to do that is to study more. The only way to do that is to coach harder and be better there, and then to stick together. Because, we do realize the type of team that we have, the type of players that we have. And when you have natural born leaders like Nick is, it's really hard to bring you down. And so when things get going and you do start catching some momentum, you do start playing better offensively, and you start working better collectively as a team, it's hard to stop. And so that quote, persistence over resistance, is something we live by.
JJ.
Matt, if you guys are without so many offensive linemen on Sunday, can you realistically do the things you would want to do as an offense, or would you have to essentially try to scheme to counter having so many guys out on your O-line?
Yeah, you have to understand a few things for us is you just like that, the contingency plan. So if you have who you think you may have, then you go ahead and you plan for that schematically, what the things that you think are the strengths of those particular players. And then if it's different, or if there's, if it's your backup plan or what you think could happen, quote unquote, worst case scenario, right? By whoever is there playing, then it's our job as coaches to make sure that schematically we are putting our offense, or defense in that situation in the best position possible by doing what we see is best against the defense we're playing. And so that's our job as coaches, and that's what we'll do.
Pat?
Matt, the other day when you were talking about your struggles in the third quarter all season, you said you've tried a lot of different stuff. Can you tell us, were you talking about what happens in the locker room at halftime? Were you talking about strategy? And if it was what happens in the locker room, can you give us any detail there without giving away state secrets?
Well, no, there's no secrets to it. That what goes on in the locker room is so fast. By the time you get in there, you get with your guys, you talk to the players real quick. Before you know it, you got to run back out. So I think it's more so of the format and the communication that goes on between our assistant coaches and how that works with them talking to the players and what the players are liking, because they have input as well. And then what are we seeing? Adjustments within the game. Is there unscouted looks that we haven't seen that we got to prepare for possibly until we stop it? And then for us, as for instance, in our scenario, us coaches getting together for a quick less than 5 minutes and just talking through, okay, what plays have we not run yet, or what plays are successful that we have run, and how do we want to go ahead using that moving forward coming out here to start the third quarter. And here's what I would tell you on that, Pat, is that really what I think you start to see is negative plays and penalties are drive stallers. And when you have those, it hurts, because not only does it hurt your field position, but it just hurts your rhythm. So if we can just stay away from penalties, stay ahead of the chains, it will really do us wonders. And it's just unfortunate that we haven't scored, hardly any points in the third quarter, and we just got to continue to keep fighting and doing whatever we can, but also focus on it. You can't just throw it to the side. You got to realize that we're not good in the third quarter. So how do we get better?
2 more for Coach. Mark Grody.
Hi, Matt. Do you think Tyler Bray is ready, if needed, to be the primary backup for the Bears? Would he be ready to come in and quarterback an entire game or an entire half if Trubisky can't go?
I hope so, because he's only been with us 8 years, or I should say been with me 8 years. So you guys I mean, you know how much I appreciate Tyler. And again, these are situations right now where whenever we see what happens with Mitchell, you're able to have a guy like Tyler that has been in this offense for a long time, and he's grown a lot. And he hasn't had a lot of chances per se, other than preseason. So if Tyler ends up being the backup, he's one play away, just like that. And so, you guys talk about contingencies and strategies and all that. We got to, those are all things you got to look at. But he's worked hard to get to this point. He's been extremely focused, and you never know.
Last one, Chris Emma.
Hey, Matt, do you expect Jermaine Ifedi to be activated before Sunday's game? And then second question to that, do you know, like right now, what your offensive line is going to be come Sunday, or do you need these practices to kind of sort through what you have and take inventory there?
Yeah, I don't know about Jermaine I think he can be activated with the rules on Saturday with the days that he has to be out, being the high risk close contact. But and then your second question in regards to the linemen, there's just so many because of the situations where the guys are right now. There's different scenarios that could happen. So we're working through all that right now. All of our guys want to be as healthy as they can. They want to be able to play through injuries, as long as it doesn't. I think what you got to be careful of is this: if you have an injury that is going to affect the way you play and you try to tough it out, that's not good for our team. So we got to be smart in regards to how that goes, and you got to balance all that. So I feel really good about Coach Juan and the way he handles these situations. He always has his guys, as mentally prepared as they can be. And so we'll just, whatever they, tell us, that's what we'll roll with.
Thanks, Coach.
All right. See you.
Hey, Nick, how you doing?
Good. How are you, JJ?
Good. With a lot of uncertainty as to who your offensive line is just you're going to be playing with on Sunday, how does that affect your preparation this week without really knowing who might be playing in front of you on Sunday?
It doesn't affect my preparation at all. The thing that with this sport is you trust your teammates, you trust your coaches, and adversity happens. That's a guaranteed. So right now, there's some injuries, as y'all know, and guys have an opportunity to go and step up and play. You hate to see injuries, but a lot of times too, these are where guys get opportunity and they start and they do well, and then they play the rest of your career. That's how you play a lot of times, and it stinks that's how it is. But we had a really good practice today. We'll watch the film in a little bit and keep improving. But my preparation will stay the same, and we'll continue to work through this and grow together.
Dan?
Nick, what's the process Wednesday to Saturday of sort of trying to get a feel for limitations with the revised offensive line so that when you go into Sunday, you guys are playing within something that can have success?
Yeah, I think today, it's easiest just to give an example from practice today. I felt like we played with great speed, great tempo. Obviously, a few of those guys, it's their first time in that specific role. So, but I thought they did a great job today at practice. We'll look at the film and see where we're at. But preparation-wise, stays the same. And then mindset-wise, stays the same. We got to go play the game. We'll, play aggressive, play attacking, do what we have to do to win the game as a team. But mindset stays the same, and we continue to build trust with one another.
Mike Berman?
Nick, with Mitch getting that opportunity the other night, at least to come and get injured, how frustrating is that for him? Or had some conversation with him who would like any opportunity. Who knows how long it'll be.
Your question was breaking out quite a bit. I know it was about Mitch the other night. As it pertains to him, I really enjoy being his teammate and us working together. I'm not going to comment on anything that he's going through because that's his place to comment. But I think he's a tremendous player, and I really enjoy working with him.
Pat Finley?
Matt Nagy was talking to us earlier in the week about, you guys' struggles in the third quarter, trying to put a finger on why. Do you have any sense for why you guys have had a rough go of it, particularly that first drive of the third quarter too? And have you ever been part of something like that in any of your stops?
I think that's something we're working on putting a finger on and figuring out, and it's going to take the coaches and the players to do that. And the biggest thing is just going in, at halftime and talking through things and just making sure we're ready to roll going into the third quarter. And that's something we can work through and get right. But once again, it goes back to trusting one another to get it right. And third quarter has been a lull for us throughout the season. It has been unique, but we have an opportunity to fix it, and we're going to work towards that.
Kevin Fishbane?
Hey, Nick, I'm wondering, from a process standpoint, you find out that Cody and Sam can't practice today. So what goes for you as the quarterback, that dialogue with the center to get ready to go for practice?
Yeah, we have a routine throughout the day with watching film with the centers, early in the morning before the day starts to make sure we go through the different cut-ups and different looks. And then we have blitz meeting, we have all those, but we like to get that in before the day. So that's a great time with anyone who's going to play center to go through it, talk through the calls, what we're thinking. So when we get to the blitz meeting, we've already seen it, and then we get to practice and walk through, and we go through it, and that's why we do what we do. It's just continuing that routine, continuing that dialogue in between our sets of plays, talking through stuff if we need to, and then just being on the same page. We're not going to be perfect, but as long as we know if we make a call, hey, where our limitation could be if they bring a blitz, we're going to be fine. And if there's times where I need to get the ball out, or I can get it out, or if, hey, I can draw back and throw it deep, I'll throw it deep. So it's just continuing to have those conversations and sticking to the routine that we have going, where it's getting in here early before the day starts and getting that extra film, and something we've been doing and we'll keep doing.
Wayne from ESPN.
Hey, Nick, you have a long history in your career of kind of performing your best when your back's against the wall, when people outside the team write you off. And I'm curious why you think that is, why you succeed in those moments or have succeeded.
I think just it's so easy to write people off so quickly. And I'm not just talking about myself. I think that we do that too much and just as human beings, and we don't allow people to struggle and go through adversity. I'm not the only one. There's plenty of people out there that overcome stuff every single day. And it's just continue to believe, have faith and trust, and continue to work through things each and every day. Not every game's going to be perfect. Not every day is going to be perfect, but there's a lot of blessings we all have in life, and just focusing on those, focusing on the gratitude. And there's some days after games where it's tough, but you realize that, for me, one of my favorite, parts is I get to wake up and I have my kids, I have my wife. I'll come in, I'll do my COVID test, and I'll go pick up breakfast and go home and be with my kids and my family for a little bit before I get back to work. And that's something that sort of resets me. My faith is obviously the most important thing. It surrounds my entire life. But this is the greatest team sport too. So I don't play an individual sport where I go out and play golf and it's in my head. I think the thing with team sports is when you go through adversity, you really start leaning on each other. You really start growing together. And there's a lot of us here. That's our first year together being with the Chicago Bears. So it's our first real time to go through adversity and learn who we really are as people throughout this time. So there's been positives even with these, how the season's gone. And at the end of the day, too, we're in a great position. We just have to keep improving and growing. And yes, there might be a few injuries here and there, but guys will step up. I've been a part of stepping up in tough situations, as have other players. So I think the big thing is we shouldn't write off people too quickly. People are resilient. Once again, not talking about myself, talking about people in general. It's amazing when you believe in people and you show that you believe in them, what they can do. And that's really a message to kids out there. Anytime, kids going through something or anyone's going through something, you give them kind words of affirmation. I mean, y'all are all people. If someone said something nice to you and you were having a rough day, you would probably respond with, okay, it's not as bad as I think, and maybe happy, and it could turn everything around. So going through adversity in sports is the same way. You get an opportunity to lift people up and go through it. So it's not always a bad thing.
Deion Miller.
Nick, how would you assess your play over these last 5 games, and what are you learning about the character of this team through this adversity right now?
Yeah, I mean, playing is, just continuing the garner reps and build that database of information. Obviously, I want to continue to play better and better and better, and I'm not where I want to be, but I'm working every single day to get better for my teammates and my coaches and the Chicago Bears. I know it doesn't just happen. It happens with, continuing to trust my routine, whether it's film study or what it may be, and then continuing to endure adversity in a positive way, and making sure I don't, let negative thoughts come in my mind, as we've all experienced, and just continue to lean on my teammates and coaches. So with my play, I want to continue to improve. I want to continue to get better and better and better. And I think that's all of us, because, we have a lot of room for improvement. And I know that the mindset on the football field today was, let's just keep getting better and better and just focus on the little things. So I'm doing that as well. I'm not where I want to be, but I'm going to keep working towards that goal of getting better.
Couple more for Nick. Chris Emma.
Nick, what's the process between now and Sunday in terms of getting squared up with your offensive line, whatever combination that may be?
It's just really like today it was just, hey, who's out there? Just step in the huddle, making sure the guys are relaxed and loose. Cause I know it's not an easy situation. All of a sudden you're stepping up and you're playing. I get it. And maybe you're in a different role, been there, done that. So I think the most important thing is just to know that, hey, there's going to be a calmness in the huddle and we're going to be in this together. So letting them know that. And if we make a mistake, it's going to be all right. Let's just keep playing. Like, the game doesn't stop. We're still here. We still have each other's back. So I thought today was a really healthy practice. I thought, I was really proud of the guys with how we responded with everything that was going on. And it's just continuing to talk to the guys, continue to be in the huddle, go through these walkthroughs, and just making sure everyone stays loose and doesn't get tight.
Last one, Dan.
Nick, I was curious how you felt about Anthony's game on Sunday, and given sort of the improved chemistry that you guys seem to show in that game, where you think he's headed right now.
Yeah, Emil and I've constantly worked together since I've gotten here. And I've just, he's figuring out my game, I'm figuring out his game, and we're just continuing to build that relationship to where we can connect on game day. And that showed the other day with some big plays. And I'm excited about him as a player. He's really talented, and it's just something where you just continue to get a feel for guys' routes because he's really like a fast twitch guy that has a lot of different moves. So a lot of it's just trusting he's going to be and letting him know where I expect him to be and let him do his thing because he's talented. And hey, but you got to be here, and he knows that. But I want him to be him because he's got a lot of talent. So that's something we're going to continue to work towards, and I'm really excited about that relationship and playing with him on game day.
Thanks, Nick.
All right, thank you all. Have a great one.
Thank you, Rick. Thank you, Tony. We appreciate your opening remarks. We've got a lot of questions, obviously, in the queue. So as we said, please keep your hands raised and raise your hand, but also please identify who you're asking your question to, whether it's of Rick or whether it's of Tony. So we're going to go ahead and open up the questions now. The first question is from Scott Merkin of MLB.com. Go ahead, Scott.
Hey, Tony, how long did it take you to figure out you wanted to do this once you were approached about the White Sox job? And what kind of adjustments do you see, even though you've been involved in the game, what kind of adjustments do you see that will need to be made in your repertoire from when you managed last to now?
I think as far as the timing, I was surprised when I first got the call. And the second conversation, I had thought about it more and had my reservations based on why I retired after 2011, and was challenged about those reservations. And the more I thought about it, and this is like the next day or two, I seriously thought, if you put exactly what I mentioned before, being upstairs for, 9 years, watching the game closely, I've described to my friends as torture because you're seeing it and you can't do anything about it. Soon thereafter, I realized I was either going to have to stop complaining about being upstairs or go downstairs. And if you're going to go downstairs and you have an opportunity like you have with the White Sox, that's when it got serious. And now, what I expect to change, I think the more you think it changes, the more it stays the same. I watch closely all the postseason. Primarily, it's our team against their team. There's a score. I do think the question that's asked most often is the wealth of information that helps you prepare. And I embrace it. I know our coaching staff will. I think people that watched our clubs the years that I managed know that we were always information seekers. How that factors into game decisions, I think you take the value of that information and maybe have a better chance to put players in a position to succeed. And going to be open about that, but I do know that, and I think I have a good experience at this in the sense that once a game starts, it's a very volatile experience. Players, not machines, how they vary, how the game may be changing within innings, much less series, game to series. That's why I think it's more important. It's very important that we use the term observational analytics. Once you got all that preparation, you got to watch the game and be ready to. So I think the difference is the preparation will be better. Looking forward to it, but the actual game decision making will be much like what I learned. You watch the game and figure out how to put people in a position to win.
Next question is James Fegan from The Athletic.
Tony, in the past, you have expressed your disagreement with players kneeling for the anthem and protest. And at the start of this season, 5 of the players that you'll be managing going forward kneeled for the anthem. How do you kind of see like you would be able to navigate that disagreement and still build a relationship of respect and trust with the players you're taking over with?
Well, it's a good question. I like the way you ended, build a relationship, because that's what the first priority every year is for staff and I to build a relationship of respect and trust with the team. And you want to get that family feeling. I know in 2016, when the first issue occurred, my initial instincts were all about, respecting the flag and the anthem and what America stands for. There's been a lot goes on in a very healthy way since 2016. And not only do I respect, but I applaud the awareness that's come into not just society, but especially into sports. If you talk about specifically baseball, I applaud and would support the fact that they are now addressing, identifying the injustices, especially on the racial side. And as long as it's peacefully protested and sincere, and what I'm learning more and more, like with the Players Alliance, and especially with the White Sox, when your protests actually have action-oriented results, way that you're going to impact to make things better, I'm all for it. At the same time, I do believe if you check White Sox, A's, and the Cardinals, I can name you, at least, the White Sox, whether it was Chet Lemon or Junior Moore or Harold Baines, and you go to the A's with Dave Stewart, Dave Henderson, Ricky Henderson, Dave Parker. You go to St. Louis with Ray Lanford, Brian Jordan, Reggie Sanders. I mean, I'll take my chance if you talk to any one of those people. There's not a racist bone in my body. I do not like injustice, and I would support exactly what I mentioned. Anything that's peacefully done and sincerely thought of, and especially with an action at the end of it, will not be a problem.
It's the freshest radio show in town. Feeling marvelous, I've been with Jerry Riles. It's the freshest radio show in town. Feeling marvelous, I've been with Jerry Riles. WCPT. WCPT.
This the coldest boys show. You were getting the hour from 6 p.m. to 7. Chillin' with Lauren Cox and the man Marvelous. Shout out to Mr. Riles and the Italian style. You sports is the only politic.
WCPT. WCPT. It's the freshest radio show in town. Feeling marvelous, I've been with Jerry Riles.
Come on, Marvelous!
It's the freshest radio show in town.
There you go, raise the
Feeling
roof.
marvelous, I've been with Jerry Riles.
That's our boy the Q, 17th letter in the alphabet, Quentin Dent. Welcome everybody to another edition of the Rewind Sports 60. We're broadcasting live from the illustrious studios of WCPT 820 AM in the beautiful, beautiful city of Chicago. We're rocking it on the lakefront, shaking the lake. Well, we're trying to shake the lake. The Chicago Bears are playing host to Drew Brees and the New Orleans Saints over at Soldier Field. And I just got it from our esteemed producer, Devin Tingle. The Bears have just scored. They were trailing 23-13, but they just scored to narrow the gap pending the PAT.
It was good.
Down by 3 with under 5 minutes to go in the contest, ladies and gentlemen. And we know you all are watching the football game, but we want you to keep the volume down on the channel, on the TV, and we want you to keep the volume up on your radio dial and or on Facebook streaming live. Yours truly, Jerry Riles. It is the fastest hour in sports conversation. Ladies and gentlemen, we got a show in store for you. And of course, we want to welcome the one, the only, ladies and gentlemen, he's not over at Wrigley Field in the press box over there. He's not in the stands. He's not in the bleachers. He's not at U.S. Cellular, despite the fact we will be talking a little bit about the Chicago White Sox. But ladies and gentlemen, he's in studio at WCPT 820 AM. He's known as the Marvelous One. He's Dan Marver. What's up, Marver?
Hi,
How
Jerry.
are you?
I'm great. I think a guaranteed rate in Wrigley, you might be able to vote now. A lot of these places, United Center.
Yeah.
So get out there and vote, number one. And number two, like we were talking about the Bears, this guy almost got 100 yards rushing today. My God. they may pull this out yet. The 3 minutes and 32 seconds to go, so we'll see what happens. But the baseball season ended kind of interestingly in the COVID world with Justin Turner ending up getting infected in the middle of the game. They announced it, so it's a crazy year all the way around.
It is. It certainly has been a crazy year, no question about it. Congratulations to the Los Angeles Dodgers and Dave Roberts on winning the World Series, the first time in 32 years? 1988, of course, the Kirk Gibson homer that sparked everything in the Game 1 winner back in 1988. But congratulations to Magic Johnson and the entire family of the Los Angeles Dodgers on winning the World Series title over the Tampa Bay Rays. We'll get an opportunity to talk to USA Today's Major League Baseball writer and columnist Bob Nightingale. He is a friend of the program because, hey, you know what? Jerry Reinsdorf for the Chicago White Sox announced that Tony La Russa, 76-year-old Tony La Russa, is your manager for your Chicago White Sox. And as they say, the crowd was stunned, ladies and gentlemen. The crowd was stunned. Marvelous.
Yeah, trying to make up for a mistake he made.
Yeah, but is it a mistake for him to try to make up a mistake?
I don't know. I mean, La Russa actually, he obviously has the creds to do the job. I just thought that maybe he wouldn't be able to relate to the youngsters, but we'll see what happens. And in any event, this is the age of the 70-pluses being leaders. So let's do it.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Let's certainly do it. And it is the age of the 70-plus. It's the age, it's the age of the 70-plus-year-old man, so to speak, because, this race, and ladies and gentlemen, on a serious, we were always serious here. Real sports, real talk, just plain real. Check us out on the RewindSports60.com. Of course, on Facebook Live. We also stream on YouTube, so we want you to definitely check out the Rewind Sports 60. But this is a very, very serious time in our history as far as this country is concerned. And on Tuesday, if you haven't already cast your vote, you have to be responsible, regardless of whichever decision you make, whichever way you vote. You have to be responsible and get your vote in on Tuesday.
And if you don't, you have nothing to complain about.
Well, that's exactly right. There's nothing for you to complain about. But, a lot of people in the past, especially in the black community, to say, my vote don't count, man. It don't count, man. They're just going to do what they're going to do. Yeah. Well, the reason they get a chance to do what they want to do is the fact that you didn't vote and you haven't voted. And so you can't complain, like Marvelous said, about what's going on, what your conditions are, if you don't get out and exercise your right to vote.
It is interesting, though. The last couple elections, it's like there are a few states that seem to make the difference: North Carolina, Minnesota, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Texas, Florida. So it's like it's almost like your vote maybe means more if you live in those states, as it turns out.
Well, for this race that's coming up, these elections that are coming up, the key major states, obviously, there is Pennsylvania, it's Florida, it's Texas, it's Georgia, it's even Ohio, Wisconsin. I think it was a swing state, but regarding the numbers and COVID-19, I think that state, our neighbors up north, I think they're swinging in the other direction. But those are typically the key states that will decide the presidency. And from records and from what the pundits are saying on both the outlets, and I educate myself, ladies and gentlemen, I'm not as astute as some of my colleagues are concerned as far as politics are concerned, but so I do try to check out and take in CNN, MSNBC, Fox News, because I want to get an overall perspective on the parties, the candidates, and the position. And the pundits are saying Florida, obviously, that's a big one. And when who I consider the greatest president of all time, president number 44, that of course Barack Obama, when he won, I mean, he took Florida. And all the presidents in the past, you win Florida, you pretty much got it signed, sealed, and delivered. So this is going to be very, very interesting to see how everything unfolds. And we have, close to 80 million people, Marvelous, who've already cast their vote?
Yeah, it's incredible. And some of it has to do with the pandemic, and a lot of folks are able to vote early, unfortunately, that may have too much free time on their hands, shall we say. And also the great interest in it, as divided as everything is, makes it so that people really want to have their voices heard.
Yeah, I mean, people, you should have your voices heard, and this is your opportunity. This is your chance to definitely make sure that it is heard. And I commend all of you, and congratulations to those of you who've already cast. I've voted already, the mail-in vote. Congratulations to you, Marvelous. Thank you for casting your vote and being a responsible American, a responsible citizen, and the greatest country in the world. That, of course, the United States of America. And speaking of the greatest president of all time, you would agree, wouldn't you, Marvelous?
The greatest president of all time?
Of all time here in the United States.
Of all time?
Of all time.
Okay, well, I don't.
I mean, you agree with me, don't you?
I mean, I don't think it was James Polk.
No, of course it wasn't. It's number 44. Okay, you know who he is.
There you go.
Yeah, it was this guy. No, you cut it off too soon. You cut it off too soon. But if you didn't hear it, check it out again, the sounder. That's what I do. That is what the greatest president of all time, President Barack Obama, said in the state of that state up north that we don't really talk about. But he made a three-pointer at a gym up there. And as he was walking out, as you heard in the background, his staff and even Biden, who was in attendance, he couldn't believe it. And, of course, the greatest president of all time that our country's ever seen, number 44, President Barack Obama, he said, that's what I do. That's what I do. Marvelous. He kind of reminded me of myself.
Really?
Yeah. He's a left-hander. I'm a left-hander. I got the jumper from the baseline. I swish it just like that. He reminded me of me.
Well, there you go. You got a lot in common.
Well, we got some things in common. I don't know if we have a lot in common. He was the president.
I think he made more income.
Yeah, his income bracket is a lot higher than mine. There's no question about it. Our number here is 773-763-9278, 773-763-WCPT. If you want to jump in, if you have any comments you want to make regarding anything in the world of sports, and of course the Bears are trying to hold on to get their sixth victory in this halfway through this NFL season. They're taking on Drew Brees and the New Orleans Saints over there on the lakefront, 23-20.
2-minute warning.
2-minute warning. We're going to keep you up to speed, and as soon as the game is over, we'll break down all the stats as far as the game is concerned, and hopefully before we're out of here, the fastest hour in sports conversation, we'll get a chance to hear from your head coach of the Chicago Bears, that of course, Matt Nagy, and his presser, and hopefully it is for a Bears victory, and I wish I had an opportunity to talk to Matt Nagy before we go to our first guest, Bob Nightingale. You love the guy, he's fantastic, but I wish I had an opportunity to talk to Matt Nagy, and I would ask him the question. I think it was about the 4:43 mark in the first period of action, the first quarter of action in this football game, where he actually pulled Nick Foles and he put in Mitchell Trubisky.
1 carry for 3 yards.
Why?
I thought that maybe the helmet came off. I didn't hear any other explanation.
And kudos to Joe Buck and, of course, Troy Aikman doing the color and the play-by-play, and, of course, Aaron Andrews on the sideline. But none of them, they didn't. You said maybe it was a helmet malfunction with Nick Foles. They didn't say anything about it. And I'm scratching my head. Why are they trotting this guy out here? No, we don't. Listen, Nagy, and this is what I would ask. Yeah. I go, listen, Matt, we do love you here in Chicago. Your play calling is a little suspect, a little skeptical, but the one thing you don't have to do It's childish trickery stuff. Don't bring Mitchell Trubisky in for. You're not doing anything to help yourself.
The other thing I thought is they're trying to match Taysom Hill, which is what the New Orleans does.
They're two different, believe me.
Yeah.
They're like night and day when you look at those two.
Yeah.
When you look at Hill for the Saints and you look at our Trubisky, they're night and day. They're night and day, and it makes sense. It makes sense from New Orleans' perspective. And Sean Payton, he has a track record. So it makes sense when he's going to do something like that. As far as Matt Nagy is concerned, I don't think so. I don't think so. But before we get an opportunity to talk more about the Chicago Bears, Bruce Heron, our regular Sunday contributor to break down the Bear games, will be joining us again at the conclusion of this game. And hopefully the Bears can hold on to improve to 6-2 and take total control of the NFC North. The Green Bay Packers, what a game.
Yeah, well,
the Minnesota Vikings.
Now it's funny. I thought that maybe we'd get a break after Tennessee playing Minnesota. It's not going to be so easy either.
Not at all. Not at all. But well, we'll get a chance hopefully to talk a little bit more regarding the Bears and their progress. Again, hopefully they'll get a victory. Bruce Heron will be joining us, the former linebacker, number 51 in your program, number 1 in our hearts. But before we do that, we'll get a chance to go out west and bring in a friend of the program. Ladies and gentlemen, you've heard him on the Rewind Sports 60 many a times, and he's joining us on this Sunday, this Bear Sunday. He writes for the USA Today as the writer, columnist, Major League Baseball. He's on our TR60 hotline. Welcome to the program again. He's Bob Nightingale. Bob, how are you?
Yeah, doing well, thanks.
Hey, man, thank you so very much for taking some time out on this Sunday, this football Sunday, to join us. But you know what? And you've been fantastic. And we actually, we talked with you when it all unfolded as far as Jerry Reinsdorf putting Tony La Russa's name out there as a candidate to become the next White Sox manager, replacing Ricky Renteria, and many people, definitely here in Chicago, and a lot of my colleagues, they thought it was just a joke. And of course, around the nation, many people simply couldn't believe it for the simple fact that Tony La Russa, 76 years of age, and we thought, you can't do that. No, Rick Hahn said we're going for an experienced guy. We're going for a guy that these players can relate to and who understands today's game. And this is the direction we're going. We're going from step A to step B, and we're ready to win the championship. And hey, man, you put it out there. You stuck to your guns. You said it was going to happen, and it certainly did this past week. How did you feel? Let me ask you that. I got to ask you how you feel, because, it's very difficult, especially in this industry, to be out somewhat on an island by yourself, and everyone is taking shots at you left and right, not believing your work is impeccable. There's no question about it. But people taking shots at you and saying, hey, this guy is crazy, or he's just leaking out some information just to keep people off track or whatever. How did you feel once the announcement was officially made by the Chicago White Sox this past week in Rick Hahn?
Well, I was confident it was going to happen. And the only way it wasn't going to happen is if Tony La Russa turned it down. I mean, he was their guy all along. And then, he accepted the deal on Monday. But the World Series was still going on. They didn't want to, upend that. So, yeah, he was the guy. And once he showed interest that he was going to do it, there was no second choice. If there was going to be a second choice, if he turned it down, it would be Bruce Bochy, who, resigned a year ago from the San Francisco Giants. Mm-hmm. Who's, actually 6 years old. But it was never going to be, A.J. Hinch. Bochy would have been the second choice.
Wow, that's it. That's very, very interesting. And of course, AJ was just signed with the Detroit Tigers, who are in the division with the White Sox. So that's going to be a very, very interesting dynamic as far as the next 3 years are concerned regarding both the Tigers and the Chicago White Sox. Because basically, and the Sox were very, very surprising, albeit as a shortened season, 60-game season due to the pandemic. It's going to come down if everything gets back to some sort of normalcy in the next year or so, to watch how these two clubs progress and develop, because it's basically you have an old school manager in La Russa, which I love, and you got the new school philosophy in AJ, and it's going to be interesting to see which one prevails. I'm an old school guy, Bob, so I mean I'm pulling for the old school guys.
Well, you and I can manage the White Sox. We're going to have a better record than the Tigers are. The Tigers are terrible. I mean, it's going to be years. I mean, it's a bad job. And, A.J. Hinch would have loved to go to the White Sox. But hey, he was spearheaded the cheating scandal. People wondered if he and Alex Cora would ever manage again. A lot of people are upset by this. Why did AJ Hinch only had a 60-game suspension, and then boom, he gets a manager job? And there's free agents. There aren't anyone free agents out there unemployed, but he is employed. So there's going to be some repercussions. I mean, I don't think the White Sox wanted a part of it in the sense where here's a team that people love. You really want to see this team booed on the road because your manager, headed the cheating scandal. Say if the White Sox won the World Series, are people going to say, yeah, but they must have been cheating because that's what happened in 2017 when he was a manager. I don't think they wanted all the extra stuff that went along with that.
But it's a good point. But let me ask this question, though. And we're on with Bob Nightingale, USA Today, Major League Baseball writer, columnist, joining us on the Rewind Sports 60. Did you, and you followed, obviously, the playoffs and the World Series, and again, congratulations to the Los Angeles Dodgers on winning the championship finally. But did you sense any of that from a national perspective as far as the Houston Astros were concerned, that they received? I know some of the media types and former players kind of took a stab at them here and there. But did you get that perspective as far as the fan base was concerned about the Houston Astros being in the playoffs and contending to possibly get to the World Series for another title, despite the cloud that's been hanging over that organization?
Oh, absolutely. People were openly rooting against the Houston Astros. People, were upset, yelling stuff even at Dusty Baker. Dusty had nothing to do with it. He wasn't managing, in 2017, but yet, he was part of that franchise now. Just in the case with the Detroit Tigers, they're not going to be well liked when they're on the road for that same reason. And you saw what Dusty Baker did, stuck his old school approach and hung with his starters long. Zach Greinke, he hung in with them instead of going to his bullpen. It paid off. When a young manager like Kevin Cash, and he's going to win Manager of the Year, went by the book, was all orchestrated, and, went down to one of the worst managerial decisions in World Series history and cost them a potential World Series.
Hey, Bob, this is Dan here. Going back to the World Series, what did you think about Justin Turner getting sick and coming back on the field after the game? That's one thing. And the other thing I was going to ask you about, I thought that La Russa might bring Dave Duncan back.
Yeah, I think he talked to Dave Duncan about it, but Dave's not enough good enough health as far as just physical wise. I'm sure he'll pick his brain and stuff like that. But Dave's going to stay, retired. Certainly if they had Hall of Famer coaches, he'd be in that. And the Turner part, it just was not smart at all. Stupid, really, for Turner to go back and celebrate with his teammates and stuff like that. I understand why he wanted to do it. I understand why the teammates weren't going to stop him. But someone should have stopped him. I mean, besides players, there's kids. There's kids on the field, the family members, or the pregnant wife on the field. So you just can't take that chance.
Yeah, if that security was going to take care of it, but they didn't.
Well, they tried from what the reports indicated, and he was able to get around them, which is again, it is somewhat unfortunate and somewhat of a selfish act. But on the flip side, I mean, you can kind of understand it. Again, this franchise hasn't won in 32 years. He was a key player in this growth and the fact that they've made it and they finally got over the hump to win the World Series. You can understand he wanted to be a part of that. Hopefully everyone's okay and everything is fine. But from his perspective, he's like, this could be a once in a lifetime opportunity for me. And I want to spend that with my teammates, my brothers, that we all got here together. So I kind of understand his perspective, sort of.
Yeah, I mean, you can understand the emotional part, but you just have to be smart about it. He could have celebrated inside the clubhouse with those teammates, and nobody would have seen anything or said anything. It would have kept quiet. Of course, the thing is now, hey, no matter how many people get infected, from Turner's actions, we'll never know.
Yeah.
That will never be made public. So, hopefully nobody does, but it's a little worrisome. I mean, obviously he and his wife had to take a separate flight, a private flight, away from the teammates. But, he should have been away from them right now. But, nothing security could do. It's not like tase the guy or something like that.
Yeah.
They said, don't defied orders.
Hey man, there was a real big uproar. I thought there was an earthquake here in the city of Chicago when it was announced that Tony La Russa was the new Sox skipper. That's because the Sox fan base, half of the fans were satisfied, the other half were not satisfied. Again, I'm an old school guy, and I remember Tony La Russa's first go around here in the 80s. I was very supportive of I was a vendor, as a matter of fact, back in 83, the winning ugly team, the White Sox. And they I think the Cubs piggyback after that, because in 84, you had the big run for the Northsiders. But I think a lot of old school guys, old school Chicagoans, they understand Tony La Russa, they understand the game, and they say, hey, you know what? This guy knows it. He may be 76 years of age, but he's won, and we deserved the championship back in the day. It didn't happen, so, maybe this is an opportunity. But I think the young schoolers, the young kids are like, either they were young or they weren't even born when Tony La Russa was in his first stint here in Chicago, and they're really irate. And I understand that as well. I guess my question to you is, Bob, is that, to me, baseball is baseball. And I understand you have to, tweak it here, fine-tune it there. But at the end of the day, baseball is baseball. Do you see that Jerry Reinsdorf is saying, you know what? This guy is a baseball mind. And the talent that we have, if we get some extra pieces, that we can win this championship, and we can win maybe multiple championships. Whereas the old school people, the new school guys are like analytics. And we saw what happened in the World Series. Does it matter, in your opinion, from you covering the game, old school versus new school's perspective? How do you see it?
As long as you win. I mean, obviously, when Tony La Russa walks in a room, he's got everybody's respect. And there's only two guys in history, that remember two guys in history that won more games than Tony La Russa. He's in the Hall of Fame for a reason. He took three teams to World Series championships. People say, well, how can you relate to guys, flipping a bat and showing emotion? It's the same guy that managed Ricky Henderson. He had Reggie Jackson. He had the Bash brothers. Dennis Eckersley pump his fists. This guy invented the bullpen usage. That's what got Ricky Rennery fired with the mismanagement of the bullpen. So as far as credentials, you're not going to do any better. And when this guy left the playing field as manager, it's not like he went back home and just sat on the couch and ate potato chips. I mean, he was running the Arizona Diamondbacks front office. Was a vice president with the Red Sox when they won the World Series 2 years ago with Joe Madden with the Angels. So, the gauge is just a number.
Does this affect, how did this affect? Because a lot of people are also saying that Jerry Reinsdorf, it is his baseball team. He is the owner. Some people felt, hey, he owed Tony La Russa, he owed him this opportunity because of what happened back in 86. But do you think this decision and move by the owner, Jerry Reinsdorf, sort of undermined, because there is rufflings from what we understand in the front office and in the organization, that some people were surprised and kind of dumbfounded by the decision? Did this somehow, the decision, undermine Rick Hahn and Kenny Williams because it appears they wanted to go in a different direction?
I don't believe that. I mean, if somebody's really upset by it, they could quit. I didn't see anybody turn in the resignation. I mean, if Jerry Reinsdorf wanted us three to be the GM, we'd be the GM. So he's one who writes the checks. But you're still talking about a Hall of Fame guy and a guy who didn't cheat to win his only World Series. So there's a big difference. And Rick Hahn used to be a player agent, and he had A.J. Hinch as a player. So they go way back. But there's a lot of things on the Houston Astros and A.J. Hinch. There's books coming out. There's documentaries. We saw what happened last year when Carlos Beltran was involved in the cheating scandal, and he got fired before he managed a game. What if more stuff comes out now with Hinch? So. No, I mean, it's like how can you go against the decision to hire a guy who's in the Hall of Fame?
Yeah, and Bob, when we have another season again, it's it's going to be this. The Twins and the Indians are going to be the competition. They both made the playoffs, obviously. Forget about the Tigers and the Royals, obviously, just for the division. So they really have a good chance to be a playoff team for time to come.
Yeah, I mean the Twins aren't going away. We'll see what Cleveland does with Francisco Lindor. If they trade him away, that means they're not really going for it, or certainly hurt their chances. And like I said, Tigers are where the White Sox were maybe about 3 years ago. Far away from contending. So it's a team built to win now, and we'll see if they add some free agents along with it, to bolster that pitching staff. Because that pitching's kind of let them down, down the stretch. Certainly they have the offense.
Dude, well, it's free agents in Major League Baseball now. Today is the first day, and there are a lot of names that are out there. Do you see the Sox? First of all, Bob, where do you see a need for this team? Gio Gonzalez, I honestly thought he was going to be part of the future as far as this pitching staff was concerned for the White Sox, but that didn't happen. How do you see Tony La Russa, Jerry Reinsdorf, Rick Hahn, and Kenny Williams working together to try to build this team up to championship caliber? As you said, you and I and Marvelous, we could have managed this team this past year, and had, I think if I had been in the dugout there, they probably would have gotten to the World Series, because I would have made some different moves than what Ricky Renteria made. But that's water under the bridge so far, as of now. But what moves do you think the Sox need to make moving forward to get them to where Jerry wants them to be?
Well, yeah, they didn't have the pitching depth to go into the World Series. It just wasn't going to happen. So they need some more starters. They could use a guy like Charlie Moore. Remember, he was teammates in Houston when they won the World Series. So I think he's a perfect guy. It's not going to cost much money either. I give him a 1 year, 2 year deal. Got to get it DH. Be kind of fun to take Nelson Cruz away, but I would think a perfect guy would be Michael Brantley, also from the Astros, who's a free agent. So they're not far away. Just need some more pitching, and obviously, you're going to have some more young guys step up and help out. Guys, young pitcher who opted out, Kopech, he'll be around all next season. So they should be in good shape. Certainly they'll be favored to win the division.
Hey, let me ask you real quick, and we do appreciate your time again joining us on this Sunday, the Rewind Sports 60s. I can't remember who mentioned this, who told me, and the Cubs haven't they didn't pick up the option for John Lester, so he's out on the market. Would it be too far-fetched for the White Sox to say, hey, you know what? Let's give him a 1 year deal, see if he can come over here and help us out?
It might be tough. I mean, in the sense where, he got hit around, pretty good last year in the National League. In American League, obviously, a lot more deeper, more talented offenses. Mm-hmm. So I think he would have a time, switch over to the American League.
Yeah.
I would think a Charlie Morton would certainly make more sense, or someone that used to the American League, pitching lifestyle.
And the only reason I forget who brought it up to me, but the only reason I bring it up is the fact that it's one thing that I hate being a Chicagoan, because I love both baseball teams, both the Cubs and the Sox, and with them both making the postseason, I was hoping that they would go deep into the postseason, and who knows, playing the World Series. Crosstown Collective, but it didn't happen. But the one thing what happens in this city between the two ball clubs, they always, for some reason, seem to swap players. Whether it's Sammy going over from the Sox to the Cubs, or, Ricky Renteria coming over from the Cubs to the Sox. I've always hated that. And hence, that's why I asked the question about John Lester. Hey, man, listen, thank you so very much for taking some your precious time on this Sunday to spend with us to get us up to speed as far as the Sox are concerned, and Tony La Russa. And, we'll continue to pick your brain, man. Keep up the great work, and we love what you do. Thank you so very much.
All right, my pleasure. Take care, guys.
Sounds good. That's Bob Nightingale of USA Today, the writer, columnist, joining us on the Rewind Sports 60. And if you are watching a Bear game and you're listening to the fastest hour in sports conversation here in the greatest city in the world, that, of course, Chicago. Marvelous. What's going on with the Bears?
Well, Cairo Santos was able to hit a 51-yard field goal in these weather conditions to tie the game, and now it's in overtime with 13 seconds left. So the Bears were able to come back and tie it, which looked pretty dismal when they were down by 10 with just a few minutes left. But they came back, tied the game. Now we're in overtime with about 9:23 to go in the overtime session. So hopefully they'll be able to pull this out. It'll be remarkable.
Wow, it is remarkable. And you got to take your hat off and say kudos to the Bears defense because they have kept this team in this game. They have kept this team in the game, and they're playing lights out. And for the Bears, good. They gave up 20 unanswered points to the Saints coming out of the locker room, right. And then they fought back to get back into this football game.
Indeed. Yeah, so, that's keep watching, but turn down the sound.
Well, there was one other thing I wanted to bring up to you. If you guys want to jump in and talk with us while we're waiting for the conclusion of the Bear game, hopefully we get an opportunity to, well, I don't know if we're going to get any Matt Nagy press conference because time is running down, but I wanted to ask you, Marvelous, as well as those of you who are listening to the show or you got us on your computer. Let me say this first of all. It's 2020. It's the first day of November. We're heading in 2021, okay? Listen to me. And Marvelous, I love you.
I love you too.
And of course, the man on the street, Marty B, because you guys are old school guys, and you have your transistor radio.
Not that old.
For you you're old school guys. Yeah. I'm an old school guy. Yeah. But for you youngsters out there, where's your transistor? Let me show you on it. Because nowadays we got the smartphone, so you can get the app and do all of that stuff.
Not wireless.
But you guys, yeah, show it. Put it up to the camera, man, right there.
Not wireless.
Yeah, he's got the transistor radio. It's invaluable. It's invaluable. But we're living in 20.
I know. I used to put one on my bike handle.
There you go, on your Swin bicycle.
Yeah, right.
With the 60 bar in the back, right?
Kidding, yeah.
And I want to say this to all of you out there because I know you're watching a Bear game, but you should have us on your computer, on your laptop, or whatever the case may be, watching the stream on Facebook. 2020. I have the Hall of Fame room. You have multiple television monitors, but you also have the computer going. You also have the smartphone going. So there's no excuse. There's no reason. None. Why you can't watch the game with the volume down, of course, but also tapped into the Rewind Sports 60 with yours truly, Jerry Riles, and of course the marvelous one, Dan Marver. But before we go to Bruce Heron, who's on our TR60 hotline to talk a little bit about this Bear game, and hopefully we'll have a Bear victory, did you have a chance to see this play?
Dumps it underneath to Shameen Jones. They want a little lateral play here for Bo Melton. They'll keep it hot for Vedral. Once more. Hey, big fella. Raekwon O'Neal, take this. Oh, my goodness. Watch out. Still no whistle. Shameen Jones cuts it back inside. He's just tripped up. Ball still live. Vedral still keeps it going. Watch out. There are no whistles. There are no flags. This counts.
That was unbelievable. Do you know what that was? I know it sounded like a lot of noise, which it was.
It was like the band, the California with the band.
It's like Cal Stanford game, and John Elway, and Chico Rivera, and God bless him, he's healthy, he's fine, he's out of the hospital. But that was Cal Stanford game. Yeah. John Elway, Chico Rivera, and of course, we've all seen it. And you see the marching band coming out, and it was an upset victory. John Elway couldn't believe it, and Stanford, Cal with the upset. But that was the Rutgers-Indiana game.
Yep.
That was the Rutgers-Indiana game. And that was crazy It was crazy. It was 2 minutes left in the game, I believe, and the Rutgers were down. And you got to Google this, and you got to take a look at it. It was better than the Cal Stanford game, well, almost better. The Cal Stanford game was an upset, victory. But this one, the touchdown by Rutgers was called back because they said it was an illegal forward pass.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't see it. Did you?
Well, I'm looking at it again now. There was one that was pretty close. That must have been the one, but most of them were backwards. But there was one that was sort of sideways. Yeah.
Yeah, and I kind of, I understand that, but because these kids put on such an effort, and I love the offensive lineman who grabbed it and he kind of just threw it over his head. It was hilarious, but it's unbelievable that they pulled this thing off and they were able to score. But unfortunately, the officials say, "Hey, no score because it was a legal forward pass." But you guys got to Google it. Hey, we're joined by Bruce Herron, number 51 in the program, number 1 in our hearts on our TR60 hotline. Bruce, did you get an opportunity to see that play, Indiana and Rutgers, that happened on Saturday, where they did a bunch of passes behind?
My favorite one is when the guy threw it over his head.
Yeah, it was hilarious. That's the lineman. He threw it over his head. Did you get a chance to see that, Bruce?
No, I did not.
It's hilarious. You got to Google it. Rutgers, Indiana. They called it back. Rutgers. It was unbelievable. It was similar to the Cal Stanford game that happened. What was that, in '86 or whatever? It was hilarious. It was hilarious. But they called it back because
82 actually.
82. But they called it back because of illegal forward pass. But I love the fact that these kids had the determination, the energy, and the creativeness to try to pull this thing off and actually score a touchdown to get back into the football game. But unfortunately, they didn't make it happen. Bruce, how are you?
I'm doing good. How about yourself?
Hey, man, we're hanging in there. We were hoping for a Bear victory before we got out of here, but it looks like the game is in overtime, and they've come back after giving up 20 unanswered points in the second half to the New Orleans Saints and Drew Brees, and now we're in OT, and we're hoping that the Bears can hang on and go to 6-2, man. What do you think?
Oh, man, I tell you what, this has been a real struggle. I mean, after we played, after the way we played against the Rams, and then showing up today offensively, it's just painful to watch, man. It's just, I just wanted to hurry up and get over with. I mean, we got the ball now. We get to drive down the field and kick a field goal, but offensive, man, it's just been painful.
They've cracked the 20-point threshold, at least. That was my bar for winning.
Look at him now. I'm watching this crap now. He just gets sacked. I mean, he has no mobility whatsoever.
Who, Foles?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's thrown an interception in 7 straight games, they were saying, too, so that's no badge of honor.
So, Bruce, I don't know. I'm sure you've been watching it since the kickoff. In the first quarter of action, I think at the 4:43 mark, Matt Nagy pulled Nick Foles for one play and brought in Mitchell Trubisky to run a play around to the left side. I'm yelling at my television monitor saying, "No, I don't want this. No, just stick to the program." What did you think of that move by Matt Nagy?
Oh, well, I know he was probably trying to do something different and, get some kind of spark. Oh, did he catch it? Yes, he did.
Okay.
He caught it.
Okay, can you give us a play-by-play?
But
I'm sorry, man. I'm sorry. You know what? I'm
Robinson, yeah.
Thing off
Yeah.
while I'm talking.
I know, pass the Robinson.
No, just turn the volume down. Turn the volume down.
The volume is down.
Okay. Okay.
Okay. That particular play, I think that Nagy was trying to just trying to spark your team and do something different. Although it really didn't help. We just don't have a quarterback, man. It's just, and you know what? In our offensive line, oh my God!
Yeah,
I'm telling you, our offensive line, they need to do a rebuild on this offense. I know they've got some injuries now, but even before the injuries, man, they just wouldn't. They're not taking care of business.
You know what? And we're on with the great Bruce Herron, number 51 of the former linebacker for your Chicago Bears on our TR60 hotline. Jared Payton, I follow him on Twitter, and he when Massey went down with the injury, and then was it Spriggs? I think Jason Spriggs suffered an injury, who replaced Robin Massey. JP, Jared Payton was like, hey, man, this offensive line just simply can't get a break. And I responded to him by saying, hey, man, this offensive line, unfortunately, we're just not good. We're just not good. And the bad thing about it is, and I don't like to beat up on anybody. I don't like to beat up on Ryan Pace, but when it's glaring you in the eye and you see that there were just bad decisions made, you got to point it out. And the fact that I think Cody Whitehair got a contract. I think Robert Massey got a contract. I think Charles Leno Jr. got a contract. I think half the offensive line got contracts, man. And they are, in my opinion, just my humble opinion, and you played the sport, Bruce. They're just not as good as the others. They're a tad below the other linemen in the National Football League, and to me, it's a reflection of that. It shows. What's your perspective, having played the game?
Yeah, the offensive line they're not athletic. I mean, they've got a bunch of big guys. They're just not athletic. Come on, Nick Foles. And I'm sorry.
No, you're good.
It's getting ugly about a minute. Our offensive line, they're just not athletic. They're not a really physical offensive team. And that's what's beating us. That's what's beating us offense. We've got some really good players at the skill level. We don't have a mobile quarterback, and the one mobile quarterback we have, he's just not accurate with his passing.
Mm-hmm.
He's just, and so we need to improve upon that as well. But our offensive line, like I said, they're just not athletic enough, and they don't have a mean streak. They don't walk up to the line and say, "Look, I dare you to bring that ball. I dare you to come my way."
Mm-hmm.
You got to have some guys. You got to have an offensive line that has that defensive mentality that I'm going to kick your ass today.
Yeah.
And I just don't see that fire. I just don't see that fire in the offensive line. So
it's interesting. I'm glad you mentioned that because and help me out here. Correct me. Back in the day, and may he rest in peace, the greatest running back of all time, the great Walter Payton, number 34. We can remember some of the linemen when he got here in Chicago, who he was running behind, whether it's a Reeve Sori or a Noah Buddha Jackson, or Dan Jiggets. I mean, and they weren't the greatest. They weren't, greatest all-pro linemen. Dennis Lick. I mean, but when they got lined up, it was, hey man, grit on grit, and you knew win or lose, you were in a dogfight. You were in a dogfight with the Chicago Bears, and we've seen the likes of Jimbo Colbert and Wally Hilgenberg. Oh, we've seen them. But I say Wally Hilgenberg. But the point I'm trying to get across is that this offensive line that we're experiencing this season, they don't even come close to those lines that we've seen in the past as far as Chicago offensive linemen are concerned for the Bears. They don't even come close to that.
Guys, there's another thing in play. November 3rd, 3 p.m. is the trade deadline. So maybe they could get some help there. I mean, there are teams like Houston, even that's 1-5. They have receivers that they might trade. It might not be a bad move to try to beef up the line and get some more receivers. I mean, that's another thought.
Do you see that happening? And let's say, I know there are a couple linemen that were on the docket, and I think other teams, I think Buffalo Bills were looking at someone. But do you think that's possible that the Bears? First of all, I don't think that they can find somebody off the scrap heap that's going to be, respectful enough to come in here, because they couldn't. They signed guys who don't even deserve the contract, and commend them for getting the contract, but they're not good enough. They're simply collectively as a bunch aren't good enough to get the job done. But do you trust Ryan Pace to make decisions to try to bring in some type of help for this offense? Bruce?
Well, I tell you this much. Ryan Pace is all we have right now. So, you have to trust him. You have to trust him to make the right decisions. Although, I mean, we've got a number of players on our team right now that you question his ability to do that. But if the Bears are trying to get to the playoffs, trying to win more than one game in the playoffs, they're going to have to do something with the offensive line. And we've got what do we have? A day and a half left, 2 days left before the end of the trade deadline.
Mm-hmm.
Into the trade deadline, and some teams that look at some teams that have no chance of going to the playoffs this year, but they've got a rock solid one or two offensive players. Offensive linemen.
Right.
That we should be talking to them, but you know what? At this point, I don't think the Bears are willing to give up any draft picks at this point because they over the last 2 or 3 years, man, they haven't had a whole lot of draft picks.
Yeah,
I think that's something that's hurting this team right now offensively.
We're on with Bruce Heron, former linebacker for the Chicago Bears, played back in 78 to 82 with the beloved.
Yes.
Yeah, number 51 in your program, number 1 in our hearts. It's interesting because the one thing I do like about this Bears football team, and obviously we're seeing it on the defensive side of the ball, is the fact that I truly believe they do have a lot of heart. I think they have a lot of fire. I think they have a lot of desire, and they want to prevail. Unfortunately, Bruce, when does it come to a point, because there are 3 phases of the game that we talk about, and this Santos guy is doing a heck of a job. He's doing a heck of a job. Yeah. And Eddie Pinheiro, who is our kicker, he may be looking for a new home. But from a teammate's perspective, and from a player's perspective, particularly on the defensive side of the ball, when you see yourself out there busting your ass every Sunday, every Thursday, whenever you're out there, and then you see this mediocre performance on the offensive side of the ball, when does this begin to wear on you and you say, hey, man, this isn't working. We're getting our ass kicked out here. We're trying to keep you in the game, but you guys aren't performing. When does that ever sink into the locker room? Because I know this team and Matt Nagy and the organization, they try to keep it away from the public and from the media. But as a player on the inside, when does this thing start to somewhat crack and possibly unravel?
Well, I don't think it's going to unravel any more than it already is. What I think that needs to happen is our defense has got to come together and say, listen, our offense has some struggles. Let's go. We have to go out here and win this game ourselves. We have to cause turnovers. We have to intercept balls, and we have to put it in the end zone. Let's not depend on our offense to do it. Let's go take care of business ourselves. Let's win this thing ourselves. And that's the attitude these guys have got to have. I know when I played, one of the things that Buddy always screamed at us, and we always had a top 5 defense, even when I was playing for Buddy. But Buddy's mentality, and he drove it. He instilled that in us. He drove it in our minds every damn day in practice. About listen, damn it, I don't want to come up with it. I don't want to hear anybody's excuses about what the offense is doing and what they're not doing. Go out there and let's win this damn thing ourselves. Win the damn thing yourself. And that was the mentality, man. I mean, we just went out and we played our ass off. We didn't always have the best talent, but I tell you what, Buddy was a gamer, man. He came up with all kinds of defenses to throw offenses off and put us in position to where we would have a chance to win. We didn't have the fastest linebackers. I was the fastest linebacker on the team at the time. Then we got Otis Wilson. Of course, Otis was, big and strong and fast. Mm-hmm. But prior to Otis, I was the only guy that had some speed. Mm-hmm. But that didn't say that the other guys couldn't play. Of course, they could play. We all had things about us that was pro material, and that was beneficial to being a good linebacker, a good player. But the thing about it is that Buddy took whatever he had to deal with, and he put us in a position to win. And that's one of the things that I complain about with the current Bears defense.
Bruce Heron,
I don't think they're always in the best position to showcase their talent.
Bruce Heron, join us on our TR60 hotline. Hey, that brings up an interesting point, an interesting perspective. Do you think the Bears, well, defensively, they haven't really lost much. They got Chuck Pagano, who took over for Vic Fangio, and like you said, the defense they're playing lights out. It was addressed after the disappointing loss to the Rams last week. It was addressed the question was asked to Matt Nagy, should he relinquish or turn over the play calling? And he said in so many words, no, we're all responsible, and we're going to continue to do what we're going to do. Do you think it's a mistake for him to continue to call plays for the Bears?
Come Matt Nagy?
Yes.
Well, you know, I know Matt Nagy's first year here. I mean, he brought with him an offense that we were not accustomed to. They moved the ball around, put the ball in the playmakers' hands, and did a lot of things that being a Chicago Bear, the fans here, we were just not accustomed to. And last year and this year it's even worse. I mean, there's something missing. There's something missing, and part of what's missing is play calling. I mean, our play calling is just not where it needs to be.
It's pedestrian.
Yeah, it is, man. And I think a lot of it has to do with us having a quarterback that is not mobile. Nick Foles he's just not a mobile quarterback. And when he gets pressured and he throws the ball, he's throwing the ball off his back foot, and the ball tends to settle on him, or it's underthrown, and
right. But Bruce,
it's one thing after another when you got issues with your offensive line.
You're right, Bruce. But yet you look at other teams. I was watching the early games today. There's people like Roethlisberger aren't very mobile. And it looks like they almost have more people playing on offense than we do because they have nobody in the backfield. And they have 3 guys wide out. I mean,
right.
It's
they got
crazy.
an offensive line for him.
Right.
And you stand back there and pick and choose. Look at Brady. It's the same thing.
Yeah.
I mean, Brady is not a mobile quarterback at all. But man, I'm telling you. Shoot, Brady gets set in that pocket, man. You stand in that pocket 4 or 5 seconds, man, and pick and choose. Well, I know he's open, but man, he had one last week. Let me take this to my second choice.
You know what? And we're short on time. It's the fastest hour in sports conversation. But the problem is, and as men, we all experience this. We all experience it as men, and we all either got a favorite coat or favorite jacket, favorite pair of shoes, or that we don't want to part with. But our mother, our girlfriend, our wife say, "Hey, you got to let it go. You got to let it go." I think Matt Nagy, I think Ryan Pace, they fall in love with what they think they know, and they stick with it, and they don't want anybody to take it away from them. And unfortunately, they're going to have to give it up sooner or later. Hey, man, how are we looking? Hope
it gets windy real quick. They're at our 11.
Hey, oh, geez. Hey, Bruce, they're lining up for a field goal. I understand, man. Hey, thank you so very much for taking time on the fastest hour sports conversation on this Sunday at WCPT, brother. We'll talk to you next Sunday. Hopefully, I don't know, man. Let's just hang in there, brother.
Yeah, I will, man. I will. Hey, thanks for having me. I really enjoy this time with you guys. So I'm looking forward to next week.
We enjoy you too, brother. Stay safe, and we'll talk to you next week.
All right, bud. Thanks.
Bruce Heron on our TR60 hotline. Ladies and gentlemen, it's the fastest hour in sports conversation. Thank you to the Marvelous One. Any closing thoughts before we go?
No, how about those Buckeyes?
Buckeyes, how about them?
Yeah, Indiana is the only other team that's 2-0 in the East, and then, of course, Northwestern and Purdue in the West. Go figure.
Let's get ready for the playoffs. Marvelous, thank you so very much. Have a fantastic week. If you miss any of the portion of this broadcast, check us out on Facebook. Comcast Access on Wednesday, Channel 17, Channel 19, Channel 35 at 7 o'clock on Wednesday. The Bears lose to the New Orleans Saints in overtime, 26-23. Thanks to Devin Tingle, our producer. Folks, have a great rest of your Sunday. Enjoy the week. Go out and vote. We'll talk to you next Sunday. Take care, everybody. Welcome, everyone, to another edition of the Sports Medicine Update, a weekly podcast by yours truly, Jerry Riles. And, of course, we're joined by the Honorable Dr. Chadwick Prodromus. Dr. Chadwick Prodromus is the president, Illinois Sports Medicine and Orthopedic Centers. Doc, how are you?
I'm great, Jerry. How you doing?
I'm doing okay. I'm just looking forward to an exciting weekend, of course, with Halloween and being socially distanced, but taking care of the little rascals coming to and from the house with some treats. And, of course, I'll take care of myself as well. But also, we got a big week in store coming up as far as the country is concerned. That obviously the election to determine who's going to be in control of this beautiful land that we call the United States of America for the next 4 years or so. So there's a lot of docket, and I tell you,
you could be torn which way, any different direction. If there was an alien that would come down right now and just took a look at what was going on in the great United States of America, man, that alien would get the heck out of here, because from the elections to the pandemic to the violence in the urban cities around the country to the firestorms out west, the hurricanes, on the south and the east of this country, there's a lot going on, but we got a lot in store. As far as the world of sports is concerned, congratulations to the Los Angeles Dodgers for winning their 7th World Series title, the first in 32 years. 1988, the last time the Dodgers were able to bring home the brass, and congratulations to Dave Roberts and his team. They did a fantastic job in a strike-shortened season, 60 games, of course. That obviously due to the pandemic, but congratulations. Doc, I don't know about you, but I was really, really surprised. As Buster Olney said of ESPN, he thought it was 5% chance that the season would get started, 0% chance that the season would crown a World Series champion. He was certainly wrong. Were you surprised that we were able to get through this whole 60-game schedule and get a World Series title?
No, week after week. There's just a lot of overly fearful misinformation. All these teams should get through all their sports. They just have to be prepared to be a little flexible, maybe cancel some games here and there if it comes to that. But no, these guys are young, healthy people. The mortality rate is close to 0 in general for that population. You get it, you get sick. Some of them don't even get sick. You move on. I wasn't surprised in the least.
It's interesting. Part of me, maybe it's the human side of me, but I was surprised, and I was happy, but surprised. I'm also surprised at the National Football League, Doc. Week 8, we're already halfway through the season, and week 8, and we're still playing games. Of course, the cases continuously go up, and teams are hit with it, but I'm just surprised and pleasantly surprised that the National Football League is still playing football Thursday night, Sunday night, Monday night, and, with a few adjustments here on Tuesday nights. But you're saying, and you've been saying it all along for the past few weeks, that you're not really alarmed with the cases, whether it be on the professional ranks or the collegiate ranks. And we'll get a chance to talk a little bit about a high school. But collegiately, Trevor Lawrence, the starting quarterback for the Clemson Tigers, tested positive a couple of days ago. He's going to miss 10. He's got a quarantine days or so. Important because Clemson will be taking on Notre Dame in about a week or so, and they're trying to see if he's going to be ready for that. I think a couple other players tested positive as well. We saw what happened with the Wisconsin Badgers, Doc, after beating Illinois up in Madison. Their starting quarterback was tested positive, and along with other teammates. I'm still surprised. I'm shocked, but you have a different perspective, and you shared that in our past podcast. For those who may not be familiar or aware with your perspective on how to handle the COVID and sports, share with us.
Sure, and I'll mention again, as I did last week, to all our listeners, I would strongly encourage you to look up something called the Great Barrington Declaration. By the way, that's Barrington, Massachusetts, not Illinois. It doesn't matter. Depending upon, there's still too much politics in this whole thing. Hopefully that ends next week one way or another. But depending upon your persuasion, some people might look at this in horror, some people not. But this was something that was created by some super smart people, Stanford, Harvard, and Oxford, epidemiologists. These are not hacks. These are some of the smartest people in the world. And their basic theory is you let young people get it because nobody dies. I mean, maybe there will be a case here or there, God forbid, but the mortality rate is essentially 0. Nobody dies. You build up herd immunity. And the herd immunity built up in the younger population protects the older population. And that's just what ought to happen, because as people don't exactly realize, everybody's got to get it, or a lot of people have to get it. Either you get an infection or you get a vaccine, and we don't know how well the vaccine's going to work. But the lockdown strategy
doesn't work. It's counterproductive. It creates sickness. It creates death. It creates suicide. It just doesn't work. So, the corollary to the Barrington Declaration, let young people get it, is protect the high risk. And that's doable. But trying to lock down the young people is highly destructive. And actually, it's kind of interesting. You brought up Trevor Lawrence and the SEC. And, the evolution of this was that the SEC was on board to play to begin with. And Pac-12, whatever it is, 12, was the first to say forget about it. The Big Ten said forget about it. And then they both came back. But still, their policies, the SEC, I guess, is a 10-day quarantine. That's reasonable because essentially nobody's contagious after 10 days. The Big Ten still has a 21-day quarantine. And look, everybody's trying to protect everybody. It's well-intended, but it's not a good policy. And there have been articles. There was a good article in the Journal of the American Medical Association and elsewhere that said this needs to be changed. The reason that it's 21 days is that there were reports early on that there were heart problems. And, from Penn State, and we talked about this a few weeks ago, too, where a doctor from Penn State said that a lot of the people had heart problems and everybody got worried, but it turns out they don't. And, this virus has been so scrutinized that people are seeing danger when none exists. Not to digress, but it relates to our own research with hydroxychloroquine, where a drug that has been used safely for 60 years with no heart problems was suddenly declared by the FDA to be heart dangerous. So we did a huge study, published it, read around the world that shows that isn't true. Well, it's the same with this. If you look hard enough, you can kind of magnify problems. But the bottom line is that now cardiologists are saying that heart problems with COVID-19 in this population are very rare. So there is no reason to, some doctors saying don't cardiac screen at all. And I think that's probably true unless you have symptoms. So the 21-day thing, unfortunately, Wisconsin, not only they're starting, but their backup quarterback is tested positive. Right. So, and it's a 21-day quarantine, and it just shouldn't be. It should be changed. I mean, I give the Big Ten credit for coming back at all. Whether they're going to be able to change their policy, I don't know, but they should. And again, follow the science, follow the experts. There just is no reason to have that long a quarantine. Again, contagion-wise, that wasn't the reason to do it to begin with, because originally they said 14 days. Well, 10's enough. But the 21 was because of fears of cardiac disease that turn out to be unfounded. So I hope they'll change that policy. But the only people that I worry about, as I've mentioned before, I worry about the morbidly obese. And the only place you find morbidly obese athletes in the United States, sumo wrestlers, accepted, which we don't have, are some football linemen. You have some in the NFL, you have some in college. And the one unfortunate person who passed from COVID in California was listed at 6'3", 355. I've mentioned that before as well. So I think let people get the disease. They're all going to be safe. But as I've mentioned before here, I think the old and the high risk should be protected. I think the young who are morbidly obese should be protected as well. That's the one group that gives me pause, and you see that here and there in football. Hardly ever in high school, here and there in college, a little more in the pros. But except for those people, they should be allowed to play. Not only are they not at risk, and obviously people that have other comorbidities, if you are very sick with something else too, don't play. But not only are they not at risk, but they protect the country. When these programs get cases and the whole team gets it, and everybody does well, this protects the rest of the country. It enhances herd immunity. Now, let me say something else to you. And I know herd immunity is also, like too many other things, has got to be politicized, right? But herd immunity coupled with focused protection. Now, one other thing, I don't want to go on too long here, but that I've seen is that there's been a lot in the news, or some in the news, about how long do antibodies last. Maybe antibodies don't last that long, and maybe you can get the disease again. But real important area is with cellular immunity, and that has nothing to do with antibodies. So to say that antibodies diminish has very little to do with getting it again, because it doesn't mention cellular immunity. And is it possible to be reinfected? Yes, and this has occurred a few times, and it's been severe, but it's still rare, and in the low risk groups is really nothing to be afraid of.
Doc, there's a lot to dive into, and that's what we love the Sports Medicine Update, the weekly podcast, because there's so much information that you provide us. There's so much insight that's useful and definitely helpful. But on the contrary, there's some information that some people say, hey, wait a minute, what is this doctor talking about? He must be off his rocker. We just had and condolences go out to his family. And the school and the classmates, but an 18-year-old freshman, I think, from Naperville, attended Dayton University, went away to school in August, no symptoms, no signs, nothing, a pure specimen of health, and he tested positive and started getting symptoms, and he came home and quarantined the whole 9 yards, and unfortunately, he succumbed. He had cardiac arrest, heart attack, and he died, and it's attributed to COVID. And it's only one individual, and we don't want to lose any individuals, but he's a young kid, 18 years of age. His mom said he was healthy as an ox, as they say, and he died of COVID. So when you look at that case, and I know it's one case, but there are people out there to say, we didn't want that to happen, and we don't want that to happen, so we're not going to put our young people in a position that it could happen again, whether it's on the collegiate ranks or in the high school ranks. How do you combat that?
My heart goes out to the family, and you can have the discussion: did the person die from COVID or with COVID? And perhaps there were no other comorbidities. People die every year, significant number. From cardiomyopathies, from going back to Len Bias and whatever I'll kind of remember from out of the blue, and it happens. And so the issue is the cure going to be worse than the disease? And keeping these kids away from sports puts them in greater harm's way elsewhere. If you look at the overall numbers, though, the percent of people who will die with COVID in this population approaches zero. And having one person die with it is just not a reason to create a policy that creates death, that creates disease in the whole population. And it isn't as though, is one death too many? Yes, it is. But it isn't as though we have an answer. Locking people down and keeping them away of sports makes things worse. It's just not the answer.
Well, unfortunately, the numbers, and we talk about the cases compared to the actual, illness and the medical side of it. But over the past week, for sure, the past couple to 3 weeks, the numbers across the board around the country, I believe in at least 37 states, Doctor, they have gone up. The cases have gone up, and the hospitalization has increased. The number of people or patients on ventilators have increased just in a matter of 10, 14, 21 days. So, yeah, it's out there. And I think the other argument that some people are presenting, Doc, is the fact that, when you make a comparison of people dying every day and, people dying automobile accidents or whatever the case may be, the experts and the scientists are saying when you look at the numbers and when COVID arrived here in the United States, and we're documented it back in March, you're looking over like a 7-month period, and you've got nearly basically 250,000 people who have died in a short period of time. And I think those are the numbers that are alarming people. And that's why a lot of people are fighting, i.e. our governor here in the state of Illinois, J.B. Pritzker, saying we don't want to put the young kids in jeopardy. We don't want any more issues because we're already above the top as far as this pandemic and trying to protect people.
Yeah, it's a specious argument. The young people aren't in jeopardy. They're just not. The young people are the people that protect the rest of the country. What you're doing is you're putting the country in jeopardy.